Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Welcome to day 4 of Voorburg and the last day of the Voorburg Group Meeting. I guess I will, Marcus, I'm going over the agenda, right? Real quick?
Yes, you do that.
Okay. This morning we will start with a poster session. Should be very interesting on evaluation for fitness for use for alternative data. So we have 3 posters. We have a session leader. He'll take it over from me in just a few minutes. And then we'll move on to Voorburg planning for the next year's meeting. We will have a session where we will go over the topics. The Voorburg Bureau met yesterday, and we have refined the topics for you all to volunteer for. And I want to say thank you so much to everyone who did their homework. I got quite a few volunteers yesterday, and I have hopefully updated the slides so that you can see the spots that we still need volunteers for. And then we will all come back after we have a session. The Voorburg Bureau will be accepting contributions for next year's meeting. Hopefully we can fill up all the slots to plan for next year, and then we will come back for a final closing session. So yesterday we ended the meeting. I just wanted to give everyone a chance to comment if they had any further comments on the session we had on intangibles yesterday. I wanted to give you a chance to provide to the group any final comments you had about that session, because we didn't have time. Does anybody have any further comments? It was a good session, I think, and I think that it's one of that's very difficult for all of us to get our heads around because it's evolving, and trying to figure out what to price for us, in the U.S. is very difficult as well. So. No comments from anyone? Okay. Melanie, should I hand it over to VA?
Sure. I'm going to need a few more minutes to get the breakout rooms assigned.
Okay. So VA can go ahead and give an introduction, a quick introduction maybe, and tell people what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can do that. Thanks.
Okay. VA, take it away.
Thank you, Bonnie. Hello, everyone. My name is Ville Auno, and I'm from Statistics Finland. And I'd like you to be very welcome to the very first virtual Voorburg Group poster session. As Bonnie said, the topic will be focused on the best practices for designing the fitness for use when dealing with alternative data. It's a very important topic nowadays when new data sources are actively being sought in statistics production. We will have 3 posters this year, and I will briefly introduce the presenters of this session before we go on to the small breakout rooms. One poster is from the UK, and it will be presented by Scott Gilby. Then we have a poster from the US Census Bureau, and Rebecca Hutchinson will be presenting their work. Lastly, we have a poster from Canada, and it is presented by Kyle Virgin. Before we go on to the breakout rooms, I guess I could mention a few words about the logistics here. So we all will be randomly assigned to 3 small groups, and the presenters will be rotated between the small groups so that they can give the presentation to each group. Each presenter will have 25 minutes per group for the presentation and discussion. And each group will also have a note taker who is going to take notes on the discussion after the presentations. Note takers will share their key points after we get back together here in the main session. And one important thing is especially for the presenters to remember that once we get into the breakout rooms, you will have to start the presentation immediately because the time will start running when we enter the rooms. I guess the organizing team will be making announcements when the rotation of presenters will happen, so we will know when the time is getting low. I guess this is all I had to say. If Melanie is ready with the breakout rooms, we can go on and start the presentations. Okay, I think we are back in the main session now. I'd like to thank everyone giving the presentations. They were all very interesting. And also thanks for the note takers who we are going to hear from now. I think we are going to hear the key points for each poster. Should we start with the poster by US Census Bureau? And if Klaus from room 1 could give us your notes first.
Yes, I do. I understood that my task was essentially to provide notes for the discussion session, but I did especially for Rebecca Hutchinson's first presentation also take notes on the actual presentation. What do I have here? So so it was about retail point of sales data, otherwise known as scanner data, as an alternative source, in order to produce more timely data, really, and deal with declining response rates, and also produce more granular data. The emphasis is on price, quantity, and characteristics. The main data collected is total sales for product X in a particular store Y, and at that level of granularity, it can be used for aggregations in the way that at the end of the process, we know the total national sales, that's, let's say, for a retailer Z. The research done by the Bureau shows that it captures coverage well. It does require cleansing, but it lines up well with the monthly retail trade survey data in the data confrontation exercise, to the point that the match rate is 99% at the store location level. When it matches well, it can get used. It must now be added that one needs retailer consent to get that data. So it's also used for stores that do not respond to the service later. Like given that the data confrontation exercise shows the validity of the approach, it can now also be used the scanner data to fill in for respondents that don't respond to the service. It's a monthly exercise, but it requires overall consent and it can be expensive. She did mention some elements about the expensive part which she didn't completely capture. And with a workaround, the data can be obtained without consent. And again, as a note taker, I did not fully capture what that workaround was, but it was mentioned. A big risk is retailer participation, which in the end is voluntary, and they can stop giving data to third parties at any time. Now, when it came to the at that point, after that presentation, I think it was Barney, somebody else said, now Klaus, it's time for you to take notes. So at that point I understood I don't really need to take notes for the actual presentations, but only for the notes. So I did that for the upcoming presentations later. If I misunderstood that, that's where it came from. So the notes are the retailer consent. There was a question on the retailer consent. And the answer was it's mixed. Some give consent immediately. Other retailers require approval from the legal department, and it sometimes gets stalled at that level. Also, it was specifically said that some retailers actually question the reason why they should share data, in the sense that it does not actually help them to reduce response burden, as they find that they don't mind filling out the surveys, so they don't see any reason to go further than this. The next question referred to the NPD versus retail reports, and when there are large differences, and again the emphasis is on total sales, not prices, there is a full evaluation at the most granular level to find the source of the discrepancy. When it cannot be resolved, we stop using the data, as it does not meet quality standards. The next question was on e-commerce related to the coronavirus. And the question that given that NPD data just shows e-commerce and brick and mortar as their main classification, how do businesses know which of the activities to classify into either box? The answer was, well, there will be some discretion at the business level on how to use those classifications. And the specific example was mentioned that when you, during the coronavirus period, order online an item from a brick and mortar store, you drive to the store and use curbside pickup, then some retailers will classify those as brick and mortar sales. Others will classify that as e-commerce sales, and that's just how it is. The next question was, how fast do you get data from NPD? And the answer was within 10 business days after the end of the month. And the final question was, are there any retail industries not covered in NPD? And that question was probably very important, because it's important to note that we do not cover grocery stores nor pharmacies. But there is a heavy concentration, therefore, in the remaining industries, which is effectively general merchandise, and also sporting goods was specifically mentioned. And as a final question, the response was the focus of the survey, again, not price as such. That would be it for the first presentation. Is that in the expectation of what? Is that how you expected the summary to be?
Yes, that was good. And you understood correctly that we need the notes only for the discussion part. Thank you, Klaus.
Okay, so for the other ones, it would be much shorter, because for the first one, I took also the notes on the presentation.
Yeah, it was good introduction to the topic.
Yeah. Should I also go to the
I think we will hear from Ulla from room 2 now, so we go poster by poster. Ulla, if you are ready, you can go ahead and tell your notes.
Okay, thank you. So I had the pleasure to take the notes for room number 2. And I could start with the comment on the costs of the third-party data. There were several comments on this subject, that the third-party data are often very very expensive, and because of this, it cannot always be used. And one way to go around is that the data has to be collected by the national statistical offices themselves, but of course that's laborious. And other solutions could be to divide the costs within the agency or between the agencies. For instance, it was mentioned that some was it the scanner data, which is brought together with national bank, so to save money for courts on this. So, and of course, it was then pointed out that in some countries the law prevents of sharing the data even between government agencies, or it could be shared only on very aggregated level. But no matter on this, you could still hear that people got really excited about the idea of dividing costs between agencies. So I hope this idea helps with the work. It was also talk of classifications in our room too. There was a question who has control and who does the classification of the retailers and products. And in the case of US Census Bureau, the statistical office has the control. And there was also pointing out that machine learning can be used for this purpose. And one of the main challenges was pointing out that e-commerce, as I suppose was dealt in room number 1 too, is that the definition is vague. It can be difficult to understand, or it's not very clear for the retailers themselves, but it can be argued within the statistical offices what the exact definition should be. And then lastly, what I took notes of was that this kind of work with scanner data or big data of third parties take a long time. And US Bureau Census has been working on this data for 6 years now, and it has been a good learning process. So if someone is starting this kind of work, it would be a good idea to contact Rebecca, because she promised to give a lot of lessons learned, and is happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulla. And then we have Luis from room 3.
Thank you. Well,
please go ahead.
In poster number 1, we had a question from Ramon Bravo from Mexico and Erika Barrera from Chile. Ramon asked about the different variables, and the answer was that personal and expense data are not obtained from the tax office because customers can move between province and the expense could vary. And Erika then asked about who is who in the tax information. And the answer was that the business number is provided by the number with the tax information, so they have information about tax. And then she asked about the value of the files for each business set to fit to the service of the national level. And the answer was yes, they have information about that. The industries are already using this information, so they already have applied this project for the interested services. And then Rohan Draper from Sweden asked about some operation questions. And when it comes to poster number 2, we had questions from again, Rohan Draper from Sweden, and Andrew Bacher, who he asked about an early takeaways on the information coming from the assessment in terms of moving. And for poster number 3, the NPD data provide an opportunity.
Luis?
Yes.
Luis, can I ask you to hold just a second? VA, he knows the questions for poster 2. So can you hold your questions for poster 3 until we get to poster 3? And we'll let the other 2 note takers go for poster 2. Would that be okay, VA?
Yeah, it is.
For Luis's room, poster 3 was the census poster.
Oh, okay. Okay. So go ahead, Luis, with poster 3 then. And then we'll go back to the other 2. Go ahead.
Yeah, finally, for the poster 3, the NPD data provide an opportunity not only to help with respondent burden response, but also to help produce more timely and more granular estimates. We had questions for Anna Ascovet, Rohan Draper again, and Melanie.
Thank you. Then we could take the poster from Canada and start again with room 1 and Klaus.
Yes. Am I on?
Now you
Yes,
are.
yes, you are.
Is it on? Okay, good. So the title was called Statistics Canada Evaluating the Fitness for Use of Alternative Data Sources Used and Integrating Them into the Retail and Service Industry Programs. The authors are Mathieu Thomasin and Kyle Virgin, and Kyle Virgin was the presenter. The overall base the point is to use the GST to replace survey data and also the frame sampling construct. He pointed out that for the Canadian GST, the largest companies must report monthly, medium companies must respond quarterly, and the smallest on an annual basis. The variables are essentially states. So the questions were, can additional variables be collected in addition to the main sales variables? The answer, no. The main variable collected for tax purposes is, of course, sales in alignment with the GST. There's no characteristics of industry or something like that. The second question was, there was a large reduction in the number of questionnaires from 2,000 plus to only 80 questionnaires today, while the GST program as a data replacement source was implemented. And the question was, how did those 80 questionnaires remain? The main answer was that companies that identify as truly complex, meaning they serve multiple industries in multiple provinces, then those are the ones most likely to still receive a questionnaire, while companies that are considered simple complex, which means one industry, one province, there's far more confidence to simply apply a GST data. Another question was on the revision cycle. Given that, as I mentioned earlier, there is a monthly, quarterly, and annual collection frequency depending on business size, every month Statistics Canada publishes for 3 months. There's going to be a preliminary for the current month, and then 2 revisions, the first revision and the second revision. And the majority of those revisions is to integrate newly arrived GST estimates as they come in. And a final question was on how to deal with non-response. And the question was, the presenter started to answer the question in terms of the stratification of the sample, which is take all, take some, and must takes of the very complex enterprises. But then, unfortunately, the presenter got cut off because it was probably the very end of the session, and the room was left without a final answer for this one. That's it for the questions on that poster.
Thank you. And moving on to room 2 and Ulla.
Thank you. This was the last poster for room 2, so we didn't have that much time for discussion, unfortunately. There was only time to talk about the downsides of using administrative data and not having straight contacts to businesses. If there is extraordinary events happening and there is no recent administrative data for a certain business, then what to do? One possibility was to rely on some other surveys for some other statistics to get information. But then it was also noted that it's really a basic problem with the administrative data that it's not collected for statistical purposes, so it's not always the optimal solution, but of course there's a lot of advantages as well. So that was all for room 2. Thank you.
Thanks. And then I think we could hear from Luis again for the poster.
Well, I have said
I think it's the post.
Number 1?
Yeah, number 1. You said it already, but should we hear it for the correct context?
I don't think we need to, VA. I think he told us, so we should move on because we need to go to a break soon, and we've still got one more poster.
Okay, let's do that. So Klaus again, and for the final poster from the UK.
Certainly. The presentation was by Scott Kilby on alternative sources and best practice for deciding fitness. Can people hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Oh, we lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, okay, someone's clicking in and out. I don't know why. There's something of the pipe. So the presentation was by Scott Kilby in the UK, alternative sources, best practice for deciding fitness of use. And it was really about quantifying measures of data quality framework on the supply and use tables. Like obviously supply and use are supposed to be equal, but they are often not. And there is a project in place to dig deep into the reasons for this. The questions were on the schedule, like what is the timeline of producing the results? The answer was, well, it's a work in progress. What we have heard here was an early reporting of a work in progress. The schedule in terms of outcome is quite a far way off. Specifically, the end of 2022 was mentioned as a first indicator for the main data, and then keep building it up from there. The second question was, is the same data source actually used for quarterly and annual data? And the answer was the focus currently is on the annual data. So the presenter didn't go into the quarterly element, but simply reiterated that the emphasis is on the annual number. Another question was on the dimensions for quality indicators. Like there can be different elements of quality indicators, dimensions depending on the industry, and to what extent can they be made to work together for an entire framework. And the answer was, well, the UK uses the New Zealand data quality framework as published, and the poster gave a link to that New Zealand framework, and to see if that's actually working for the UK or not. Another question was on the use of the dashboard technology, and the presenter said yes, they're using R-Shiny, which is the same as I believe that the USA is using. The final question was on the cost, and the answer was it's a smallish team of 4 people that work on this project. They did, however, expand that the tough part for the team is to know who else to bring in the sense that there is hundreds of people who work on the supply and use tables, and it takes time and skillfulness in order to find out who to actually talk to. That is the end of my notes.
Thank you, Klaus, and then finally Ulla for the UK poster.
Okay, thank you. Our room started out with a practical question of using the quality metrics. So what if there is a case that administrative data has several variables and the quality of them varies? And the answer was that ideally there should be separate metrics for different variables or a different set of variables depending on the case. So that would be the ideal solution. And then there was also a question if others are doing similar work with the quality framework to have some peer support. And StatsCan answered that they have similar framework in use for some of the data sets. And then there was a question if some subjective metrics could or should also be used or be considered to be added to this set of metrics. The answer was that they could be used for extra information or supplementary information, but it would be good if decisions should not be solely based on them, because they are, of course, not objective. And then it was also questioned how often these metrics or these quality indicators are updated. And again, on ideal situation, they will be updated as often as the data changes. So it depends on the data frequency. And then Craig from ONS pointed out lastly that this kind of framework or metrics is a very good tool for training new experts on statistical area. It's an easy way to get an overview of the quality of the data sources. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you once again for all note takers and presenters. And I think we are already a lot behind the schedule, so I give it back to Bonnie and Marcus, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, VA. Thank you for the note takers. You all worked very quickly to summarize the comments, so we really appreciate it. I think it won't be a problem for us to catch up, but I do think we probably need a break. This is when we were scheduled to take a break, and then we will start the planning session after a 15-minute break. Is that okay with you, Marcus?
Yes, sure.
Okay, we'll see you in 15 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I need to share my Can everybody see that? And can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Ramon, I recognized your voice. Thank you. All right, we need to start planning for next meeting. This meeting has been quite successful. I mean, think of all we've done. We've, just to summarize a few things, we've come up with, we're on the cutting edge of quality adjustment techniques. We have a framework that is close to being ready to for the SPPI and CPI, CPI use as a proxy in SPPI. So we've had many sessions, interesting sessions from the international standpoint, the trade and services by mode, which kind of gets into our mission for the upcoming 5 years, which we've had very good feedback on over the last few days or the meeting. Lots of good work, lots of interesting work, and I appreciate everybody who contributed to the meeting. So let's plan for the next meeting. To give you an overview, I'm going to go over the evaluation, the Voorburg Bureau going forward, our proposed agenda. I'll go over it quickly one more time, and then we start assignment of work, and then Marcus will come on after we've done the assignments, and he'll wrap up with giving us the Voorburg Bureau and the delegate tasks before the next meeting. So your evaluation feedback. You were emailed a link to a secure website this morning. It came from Virtual Voorburg, in case you're looking for it. And we like for you, it's for your evaluation. Last year, we did the same, a very similar survey, and Marcus and I and the Voorburg Bureau from the survey, and that made us focus and do things differently a little bit this year. One of the things last year that people said was that the meeting was too short. We only had a 2-day meeting last year, and so we have made it now a 4-day meeting. So we did make some changes. We had a poster session this year. We tried the breakout rooms. There were a lot of different things that came out of the evaluation, and you saw the results in this year's meeting. So we're hoping that everyone will fill out the evaluation, including the open-ended questions. We'd like to have your written feedback. If we didn't cover something in the evaluation, you want to tell us, please write it in the open-ended questions. We will make adjustments based on your feedback. We've already proven that we do that, and so it's very important for you to fill out the survey. The survey will be open for only 1 week. It will close on October 1st. And then Mexico will compile the results, and then they will be in aggregate form. They'll be included in these revised slides and posted on the VLS Voorburg 2020 website. So Ramon, thank you to you and your colleagues from Mexico who designed the survey, and you make this so easy for us to get results and feedback. So thank you again, Ramon, for organizing the evaluation feedback this year. All right, the Voorburg Bureau, at the end of every meeting, a delegate from the next host country joins the Bureau, and that person remains until the end of the following year's meeting. So we need to thank VA Uno from Statistics Finland. He had joined the Bureau. Susanna Todd joined the Bureau when we were in Paris, and on leave, and VA took over. Our meeting last year was fantastic from Statistics Finland. Thank you for adjusting from an in-person meeting to a virtual meeting very quickly, and I know you had a large part in that, and you and your colleagues from Finland, but thank you, VA, for serving on the Voorburg Bureau as a member. And then we are also wanting to thank Erica Barrera. She's from our colleague from National Accounts. She represents our National Accounts voice on the Voorburg Bureau. Erica's from the Central Bank of Chile, and she will be still participating in the Voorburg Group, which is wonderful to hear, but not serving on the Bureau going forward. So Erica, thank you so much. You've been on the Voorburg Bureau for a number of years, and you've given us a perspective that we didn't have before on national accounts, and we look forward really to having you participate in our sessions going forward. We're glad you're going to remain in the Voorburg Group, even not serving on the Bureau. So also, Dragos Ephraim from Statistics Canada. He has been our secretary for a number of years. He will be, Dragos, you can pipe in here. We have to learn about your situation. You will not be on the Voorburg Bureau shortly, but we hope that you will be on for a little while longer. Is that right?
That's correct, Bonnie. I hope the voice comes up right. I had the issue with the mic all morning.
It's good. It's good. So
okay. Yeah. So you're right. I just emailed you. So we're all good for now.
Okay, good. Thank you. I do want to thank you, Dragos, for all the work that you've done organizing us and keeping us up to date. And I think you provided the minutes a lot more quickly than any of our other secretaries did before. John doesn't hear me. He's not here right now, so that's good. But anyway, thank you very much for that. And thank you for serving on the Voorburg Bureau. We're hoping to keep a representative from Canada, going forward. So Marcus and I have agreed to be co-chairs again next year for our meeting. And we have received a nomination, and the Voorburg Bureau has accepted that nomination. We are going to add Rohan Draper from, get this, breaking news from Statistics Denmark. So Rohan, if you want to people know who you are because of the presentations you've had, but welcome to the Voorburg Bureau. You are our newest member, and you will be representing Statistics Denmark on the Bureau. Rohan, you can tell people what you're doing if your microphone is on and if you're listening.
Oh, thank you, Bonnie. Yes,
I can't see. Yes.
A new chapter coming up as of the 1st of October. I'll be working for Statistics Denmark as an advisor there, and I'll still have some work with prices on an advisory basis, but a little bit more focused on metadata and quality. So I'm hoping to bring some of that emphasis, and there's been a lot of discussions on that over this week, and I'll be looking forward to bringing a bit more of that into the Voorburg going forward.
Great. So I'll ask you formally, do you accept your nomination to be on the Voorburg Group Bureau?
I do gladly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for volunteering. And thank you, Nicholas, for your nomination of Rohan. So Rohan, we'll include you on our next meeting, which will be shortly because we'll have to plan the next meeting. So you'll be helping us do that. So thank you. We are going to hold a vacant position on the Voorburg Bureau. We currently do not have a host, or a virtual host or an in-person host, but we're planning to do it virtually. So it's a lot easier on any country that wants to volunteer. We do not have a host right now. And so we are leaving a position open on the Voorburg Bureau for that. Okay, moving on. This is the moment of truth for everyone. we have our proposed 2022 agenda. These are the sessions that we have identified participants in. Obviously, all of you will contribute to finishing up our alternative data industry spreadsheet. If you have not contributed, please do so, and we will compile the results from everyone. We have an industry sector paper that will be prepared and presented next year for renting and leasing of other machinery, equipment, and tangible goods. And I want to thank Melanie Santiago. She has accepted this challenge and has accepted the role of industry sector paper author for next year. We had to postpone a presentation from China on alternative data use in air passenger transportation. We are hopeful that they will be able to present that at next year's virtual meeting. And then we have a continuation of the IMF collaboration. I want to be sure that Andrew, you and your colleagues are, I put IMF here as a contributing country, but it's all the countries involved. I'm hoping that everyone in your group will be able to continue to participate. Andrew, if you are on, would you just verify that I have this right, that you're going to continue on and potentially have a final paper for the next year's meeting?
That's right. So I was thinking just kind of extending on what we did there. So. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now, for the rest of the proposed agenda for next year, the Voorburg Bureau met and we have refined some of the topics, so pay close attention to this. On education, we are going to have many presentations for ISIC 85. We've gone up to the sector level because education, we have never agreed at the Voorburg Bureau to discuss education before. It is the way that education is paid for in countries is varied. So just because this topic is difficult, I think, we are not going to avoid it. We're going to go head on and talk about education next year. We already have contributing countries. Sweden and Mexico have graciously volunteered to give us their output contributions. And we need prices contributions, and Marcus and I discussed this morning. We also think we need a national accounts perspective as to what data they need or what data they have available. So we'd like for a national accountant specialist to volunteer for this session if possible as well. We're going to continue on the next topic, e-commerce. The pandemic has definitely caused a transformation in the way services are digitally delivered, provided, ordered, and platform enabled. So we would like industry papers that we're not from countries other than those that presented in India in 2017 to share their measurement experiences on e-commerce. So look back at the 2017 presentations that we had in India and other countries that have made progress in measuring e-commerce. We would like to have volunteer in this session. Potentially, we'd like to have a country volunteer for an e-commerce measurement progress. So we'd like for a country to come up with an electronic survey that will tell us at Voorburg how much, what the breadth of coverage is for e-commerce. So we'd like for a country to volunteer for that. We've had electronic surveys in the past. Amelia will be sending one out just as a reminder from her session this year after the feedback survey closes. So we will have sort of an electronic survey after this year's meeting. We have changed the next session a little bit. We had in Rome, we had many presentations on output and services for ISIC 6311, which is data processing. And we've been talking about cloud computing this year. This industry is ever changing. And so what we want to do next year is to concentrate and have many presentations that present new work that addresses the issues that were raised in the paper. Christian Stock, I believe, did the issue paper for 63.11 in Paris, and we'd like for you to review that paper. And the Netherlands, I know, already has a topic. they have already volunteered to talk about data center co-location. And there are many issues with this industry. What belongs in it is one of the largest issues, and it's an ever-changing industry. So we'd like to just have, we're not going to revisit it as a sector. We'd only like new work that addresses the issues raised in the issues paper. So new sessions. These are essentially the same. We did not get a national accounts topic to add to these, but we did get a new topic. The new one at the end here is added to the slides I presented on Monday. We would like to have a cross-cutting topic on alternative data quality assessment. So what metadata systems or frameworks are used to monitor fitness for use, not only when you are figuring out whether you're going to accept and use alternative data, but during. So once you start using this data, how do we measure quality? How do we measure the quality of the data? Does it continue to be reflective? Those kinds of things. This cross-cutting topic, if you want to volunteer for that, it matches very well with the task force on building on the results of the 2021 poster session that we just had this morning. It builds on criteria for fitness for use of alternative data. And we want to try in the end to establish a global guideline document for alternative data use, at least for the Voorburg Group, and for potential use by the UN committees. So this task force is, we've got lots of volunteers already. Ireland, the UK, and Canada have already volunteered. We only need a leader for that task force. Maybe one of the three of you can volunteer to lead that task force. We can then take another participant. And then we have a task force on collaboration. We have gotten many, many comments. And in the last 2 days, I've gotten comments that I believe Voorburg Bureau members would like to see each other in person. And we all want that. And we are planning a 2023 in-person meeting already. We've got some feelers out for that. So hang on. We might have to have one more year of virtual. We think we will. But this task force proposed an engagement plan for Voorburg Group to maximize collaboration between the meetings. So we heard from Rohan that the group on SPPI, CPI enjoyed talking to each other and in a smaller group and sharing ideas. And I'm sure things came up in those meetings that weren't related to the topic as well. So work gets done when you have coffee breaks together and when you have dinners together, when we're all in the same place. We make progress, and we make further progress when we collaborate. So this engagement plan hopefully will come up with innovative ideas where we can all get together in small groups about topics during the year, not just once a year when we're in a meeting. We have a task force on outreach. Currently, Marcus and I do quite a bit of outreach. We have been added to the United Nations Committee on Business and Trade Statistics, the overall committee, so that we can keep what's going on across the UN and all they're making. We have a liaison, Faye Dorset from the Census Bureau is our liaison to the ISIC and CPC review task team. So we've got some work going on. We want to increase this work. So we need a task force on getting others, other than just the few of us that are involved in reaching out to international organizations. I know we had a volunteer from Richard Hayes from the UK volunteered to reach out to a group this year, and that's great. But we need sort of to document how the rest of us can reach out. The quality change topic is one that we believe we will leave on the agenda for every year because there's always something new coming down the pikes for methods for capturing quality change. After all, quality change is very difficult in services, and we are figuring it out as a group together because of these sessions. So we have a classification on wholesale trade. Let me say a little bit more about that. Trade is classified by the products that are wholesaled, and we, as you all know, are in the business of measuring services and the production that is involved in providing the service. So this is a topic that if someone wants to think about how we might better measure wholesale trade, that would be it'd be great for you to volunteer for this. Service designations, just off the top of my head, could be based on the inputs needed to provide the service, like refrigeration and freezing. So similar to how we measure warehousing and storage. Frozen and refrigerated foods require a different production function than your dry goods. Your bulk liquids, petroleum, your bulk liquids are different. So anyway, so in the completion of the SPPI CPI task force, some of our members are no longer going to be able to contribute. So I asked for 2, and I have 2 volunteers to be added to that CPI task force. So please, you all, Nicholas and Rohan, please take note. VA from Finland has volunteered to be added to the task force. And right now, I know Allison from Costa Rica is asking if she can participate. She will provide this group with a national accounts perspective. And I know you said you needed to talk to national accountants. So we thought having a national accountant on this group would be a good thing. If she cannot, we also have a backup. So no worries, there will be a national accountant on this task force. So Allison will let us know after the meeting. All right, so there's 2 methods to volunteer. Use the chat. I'm going to unshare so I can see the chat, and my Voorburg Bureau colleagues have agreed to help me by turning on their microphones and letting me know if somebody has volunteered in the chat. You can remain on the WebEx at the conclusion of the meeting. We'll be here for a little while to speak with the Voorburg co-chairs. For example, if you want to volunteer, but you have to go back and ask if you can, that is fine. We can put a question mark by your name and follow up with you to get a final confirmation. You can also send an email to the Voorburg Group co-chairs. Myself, my email is here on the slide, and Marcus, his email is here as well. We want to close contributions by October the 9th. Please send us your name, your national statistical organization, and the topic that you would like to volunteer for. So that is it. I'm going to stop sharing. I can see the chat now. Would it be good? My Voorburg Bureau, please let me know. Would it be good for me to have the slides, at least put them up with the cost-cutting sessions up so that people can look at them and see if they want to volunteer? And this is a time we're going to take a few minutes. I would say, maybe 20 minutes for you to think about, all of you who want to participate. I hope that we got a lot of feedback in the last 2 or 3 days for people that have volunteered to participate. I hope I have those all correct on the slides. Please validate that I have put you down correctly, what you have volunteered for. Please also volunteer in the chat and turn on your microphones, turn on your cameras if you would like to volunteer for a session, and I will update the slides as you volunteer. So I'm going to be quiet now so you can think and so that you can volunteer. Feel free to unmute yourself and volunteer.
Tony, would you like me to share the slides?
That would be good so that I can still see the chat. That would be great. You can start with the session that is the proposed new sessions, I think. That would be great. Christian, thank you so much. I got your message. I'll put it in the slides. You may need this discussion share.
Bonnie, can I just double check a moment? So
Yes.
so with the at the bottom of the screen, the cross-cutting topic on alternative quality data assessment, and then the task force, are they still going to be two separate things?
We can put them together if the task force thinks that they can handle adding to their scope about data quality assessment. I think that's a good idea. I think we should combine them.
Because I was going to offer that, because in the UK, so for the actual task force, I've got some of my Prices colleagues are keen to contribute to the task force itself. So if that's the case, then I don't mind putting our name against this one, because we're obviously just building on Scott's presentation earlier. So if you want to keep them separate, I'm happy to contribute. It'd be different people, basically, from the UK. But.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense to combine them.
But if you wanted to keep them separate, I'm offering that as well.
Okay. I think that's a good way. I think the Bureau can decide that afterwards, but I do think it's a topic that needs to be put in with the global guidelines. So my thought is they're going to be combined, but we'll get the UK in this one. Okay, I'm seeing lots of volunteers here. We have a volunteer for modernizing production systems. Good. I have a volunteer to be a discussant or the session chair for education. One for modernizing production systems. So we now have two for that topic. A potential one for export education. Right. And then good. From Switzerland. That would be great. I got a message from you all. The second cross-cutting topic. Okay. Ah, thank you, Angela. You know, I was struggling trying to figure out which one. But yes, write me an email. That would be great. We've got a volunteer. from Switzerland, potentially for the session on data gaps and measurement issues. So good. Potential volunteers for outreach in the alternative data quality assessment. Good. No takers for the classification topic yet. Okay, Marcus.
Yes.
How are we doing as far as?
Yeah, I don't see anything in the chat so far, but
okay.
Maybe you get
I'm getting
them,
some private. I'm getting some
direct.
private messages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting some private messages, so I will continue to try to update them, and if I can, give me about 10 minutes. Does that work with you? And then you can give our closing remarks.
Yeah, or if we should do it, and people can apply just during while I'm speaking, not to keep people waiting.
Sure. Okay, that's good. Okay, keep going. I'm going to turn it over to Marcus. Melanie, you can share. Go ahead and go to slide 10, I believe, and that's where Marcus starts. If you want to. Next one. Okay, Marcus,
yes.
Take it away.
Yes. Yep, thank you. So, yeah, just a few tasks that are left from this year's meeting that we need to do in the coming months or so. Oh, let me turn on the video. So, one thing is every second year we report to the UNSC, quite an extensive report, and this year it's time to deliver it by November 30th. And this is a task for Bonnie and me. We will take care of this one. And meeting notes, we usually have the meeting notes published by in the beginning of next year. I'm not sure how we will do it this year because we have a lot of audio recording and the chat recorder also, everything is saved. So yeah, we will have to talk about how to do this. Yeah, for this year, I suppose, if it's necessary to have them in the usual way, or yeah, we can talk about this in the bureau, I suppose. And for everyone who had papers and presentations for this year, if you want to update them or make any changes to it, you can send them in by the 15th of January next year to the virtual Voorburg address that is there. So in the beginning of next year, we need your amendments and changes to the papers. Next slide. Yeah, so the strategic plan that we've been talking about, we should be finalizing this later this year. And yeah, the Bureau will work on this. And thank you everyone for your comments and suggestions that we have received so far. The future agenda, so yeah, depending on what all of the participation will look like and the feedback from the survey, and yeah, we will start planning for the next year's meeting. And we also intend to post some standardized instructions for session leaders, discussant, mini presentations, all of the different roles that are available. So everyone, it's clear for everyone what their role is and what's expected of them at the meeting. Next slide. So we also have a glossary to the Voorburg Group, and we usually update this every year after the meeting with the new terminology that has been coming up during the meeting. I don't know right now what we have from this year's meeting, but we will, after we have the meeting notes, we will see what new terminology we have to add to the glossary. And as we have been having some more and more communication between meetings, we will talk about the different platforms and tools that we can use to communicate between the meetings, and maybe have some standardized platforms and tools to use for the Voorburg Group. Next slide. Oh yeah, so about the host for next year, like Bunny said, we don't have a host yet, and also like Bunny mentioned, we plan for a virtual meeting also next year. And yeah, most people would like to meet in person. Yeah, I think everyone would like to, but we don't have a host at all, and I think it is too short time to make some arrangements for an in-person meeting. So I guess we will have to be satisfied if we can find a virtual host for next year. So if there are anyone that could do the hosting for next year, we are welcome you to send in your suggestions to Bonnie or me.
Marcus, I have a draft of the virtual host that I had to prepare us. And if people need that, but we need to have a host very soon because you have to start planning now. It's more happening in the background than you can imagine. But it's not a huge task, I suppose, but it's manageable. But you did it this year in the US. So next slide. So I want to thank the BLS for the hosting of this year's meeting. Yeah, a lot of new things that were tried out with the breakout rooms and technological things. So everything worked out really good, I think. So thank you very much. And so thank for all the participants and contributors with discussions, papers, and everything that was note takers and everything that was done during the meeting. Really good job, everyone. And of course, we hope to see you all next year in some way or form. So